Everyone, it's John from wouyld, and welcome back to another video, and this will be a review of the entire second season of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show versus individual episodes. Yes, I know I've already done reviews of every single episode. You can actually find them earlier on in this playlist if you want to figure out what I thought about each individual episode, but the numbers do tend to change a bit when you're considering the entire season all at once. Now, every episode is a little bit different, and there was some pretty big discrepancies between the scores. So, for example, some episodes were scored incredibly high. There was near as perfect TV as it could possibly get, at least for me. We're talking 9.5s. And then you had some episodes that didn't do so well, that were in the mid-6 range, and it has to do with a multitude of different factors. Mainly, you have different writers working on them all, you have different directors, you have different ideas being pushed together, and you have different culminations of scenes that either paid off really well, in my opinion, or didn't. But either way, the episodes themselves, some of them did really, really well in reviews, and others didn't do so well. So I thought I'd try to gather all of my thoughts for the entire second season all at once, and put it in one video, and try to give the whole season a score. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with my reviews, I kind of ignore the books exist when I do this. So, for example, when I'm scoring the episodes, or for right now, the season, I know the source material exists, I know this is an adaptation of it, but I don't change my score based on the fact that it's close to the books or things have been changed, either for the better or for the worse. And I do that because I want to review the show on its own merits. Now, that's helped it out a couple of times, and it's also hindered it a couple of times because, let's face it, there's a ton of stuff from the show that isn't explained very well at all. They set up this great big world with all these cool things in it, and there's very little explanation of a lot of it, and you're just supposed to go with it. Now, as a book reader, you know some of the things that are happening behind the scenes, and you know what's going on. As just a show watcher, some of them are left confused and with quite a few questions. Not everybody. A lot of people took the show for what it was and really enjoyed it and didn't have questions about the inner workings of things behind the scenes, but some people did. So, like I said, it helped in some cases and it hindered in others. But, like I said, I don't either add or subtract from the score based on the source material or changes from it. So, that being said, since we are talking about the entire second season, it's been out for a bit now. I probably shouldn't have to give too big of a spoiler warning, but I know some of you watch my videos without watching the show, and I know some of you watch the show without reading the books, and I'm going to reference them throughout this video as well. Even if it doesn't change the score, I'll still talk about them just a little bit. So, all of that being said, I do have to get a bit of a spoiler warning before we get into the video. So, spoiler warning, if you have not seen the first 2 seasons of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show, streaming right now on Prime Video, or have not read the first 4 books, I'm giving myself a little bit of a buffer zone here. That's 4 books of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. That's The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, and The Shadow Rising. I know very little from the series that's to do with The Shadow Rising just yet, but I'm giving myself just a bit of a buffer. Be forewarned, I may ruin plot points and character arcs from both of those mediums. Alright folks, so in preparation for this video, I watched Season 1 and Season 2 right in a row, kind of binged them, and I realized I didn't do this sort of video for Season 1, which is kind of disappointing because I want to compare my thoughts about Season 2 to my thoughts of Season 1. So I'm going to give a very brief note on Season 1, give it a score, then we'll move on to Season 2, which is what this video is supposed to be about. So, for Season 1, there were a ton of challenges they faced, and there was all kinds of things on the go, and I think they did the best they could with what they had at the time. Now, a note on my reviews, as I've already mentioned, that they don't factor in any changes from the source material, and they rate the show as if it's a show itself and it stands alone. And I stand by that. However, something else that many of you may not realize is when I gave my reviews, I watched the episodes live. So I watched them with you folks. I would watch an episode with my family and friends, and then I would come over to the computer, jump on, and give my unfiltered thoughts immediately. There was zero influence from any other creators, zero influence from the community in any way, shape, or form. So I stayed off social media. I didn't interact with many people during either season when they were live. And there was no, and I'm repeating this, absolutely no influence from Amazon or Sony. You may have seen many creators opening up packages that they got from the production teams. Some people got screeners. They were able to do early reviews. Some people were given trips and things like that. I got none of that. I'm a regular person just like you folks, and I don't consider myself an influencer in any way, shape, or form. So I got none of those things. I'm just like you when it comes to watching the show. So when I gave my opinion, it was my opinion in the moment. And now I know some of you at this point are thinking, well, John, make this easy. Take your 8 episodes, your score for each episode, divide it by 8, give us the average. That's your season score. That's not fair. And I think it's actually a little disingenuous because it was my unfiltered opinion at the time when no one else influenced me. I'm doing this long after the fact. At this point, I've talked to a ton of different people, other creators, other people in the community. I've interacted with people online. I've read articles. I've seen all of the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful from the community just in general when it comes to the show. And it does tend to influence your opinion just a little bit. So I have to give a brand new score for it. That being said, score for season 1, 7. 7 out of 10. I think that's a fair score. I really honestly do. They did some things right. They had a lot of good ideas, and a lot of things went well for season 1, and a lot of things really did not go well at all. They kind of fell off the cliff at a couple of different points. Pacing was all over the place. It felt disjointed, like it was different episodes, like an episodic show almost, rather than an overarching story in some aspects. I really had a problem with a lot of things in season 1 as far as a show is built and whatnot. And so I give it a 7 out of 10. Not a bad score. I mean, it's still good. It's just not amazing. Now, I've been on this channel a fair bit now. We're going on a little over 4 years, and I've said for a long time now that season 2 is head and shoulders above season 1, and it truly, truly is. It had a lot of really good moments. It did a lot of things right, but it did a couple of things, in my opinion, unabashedly wrong. And we're not talking changes from the source material in any way, shape, or form. We're just talking as a show. So the score I'm giving season 2 is going to be an 8 out of 10. Yes, it's better than season 1's, but it would have been much higher if they had changed just a couple of things. And we'll talk about the things I really enjoyed about the season and why it got the score it did. But we're also going to talk about some of the things I didn't enjoy. Now, in doing so, I know I'm probably going to upset some of you. Just understand this is my opinion. It's one person's opinion. And it's neither right nor wrong. It's just how I feel. I know a lot of people watch my channel that absolutely despise the show. And they do. And there are people out there that don't like it, but they still watch my content. And that's totally fine. You can love the books and hate the show. Totally cool with that. There are also people out there who watch the show, absolutely love it, watch my channel, but have never read the books. And there are a ton of people in between. So generally when I give a score that isn't to one end of the spectrum or the other, I tend to make a few people upset. And that's also okay. You're also allowed to be upset about my opinions. As to how I got there, I'm going to try to explain that now in a way that I think everyone's going to be able to understand, and hopefully, even if you don't agree with, understand how I got to this point. So, 8 out of 10, not bad for a season, especially for a season score. It's actually pretty good. But we're going to talk about the good, then the bad, because there are some bad about this particular season. And we'll try to explain how I got to this score we're at now. Now, one little note. If you really like the show a whole lot, or if you really hated the show a whole lot, you may not agree with a lot of the things I say, and that's totally fine. It's my opinion, and only my opinion. This is just me. Just remember that, please. All right, so the good. The overarching storyline was, for the most part, done very well, with the exception of 2 particular storylines, which we'll get into in just a moment. So the character building and the pacing for most of the episodes and most of the characters was done almost perfectly. They had a definite beginning, middle, and end of their character development. Each individual episode, when you were following certain characters, their storylines had a definite beginning, middle, and end, and they grew during it. It was done almost like, and I said this during my individual episode reviews, like reading the chapters of a book. There was a natural stopping point where they stopped. They didn't try to push that or go beyond it for the most part, and they didn't cut it off early for the most part. So the pacing of the second season overall was done way better than the pacing of season 1. Season 1, like I said earlier, felt disjointed and almost felt like in some cases, a flavor of the week episode. It didn't feel that way for season 2. Everything felt connected. So they did a very good job with that. The visual features of the season, and I had to pause there because I don't really have words to describe how pretty. That's like a $2 word for a $100 statement. How pretty this season was. Everything from costumes to props to backgrounds to the extras to the VFX and special effects, the practical effects, the CG, even the CG, and I hate CG, was done very, very well. It should have been, because they had a long time between the end of season 2 and the beginning of releasing it, like when they finished filming versus release. So they had a long time to polish it, but it shows. They did take their time with it, and it was done very, very well. Visually, it was stunning for the entire season. There wasn't a single part in the season when I went, that looks like a $2 show on the CW. It didn't. It definitely looked like a polished feature film for most of the season. Camera work, the locations, the storyline for everybody involved, the writing, the acting, all done very, very well. So that built everything up. Now we're going to talk about things that kind of took away from a higher mark. And it's two storylines in particular that I did not enjoy, and then the finale. Those are the three things that caused season 2 to lose points, in my opinion. So the first storyline we're going to talk about is parents. It started out incredibly strong. We got to learn a lot about the Wolf brother. We got to learn a lot about the backstory of how and why things are going on with Perrin. He was built up to a certain point, and then it's almost like he became not important for the finale. He had his moment in the finale. Don't get me wrong. He did have his moment where he had his sad and anger moment, and it did build up and set him in the right path to season 3. But I felt like the interim between when he met Aviendha to the start of the finale, there was nothing. There was literally not a whole lot there. Aviendha was not built up at all. The maidens were barely built up. So that part of his storyline, I think, was lacking. And in all honesty, which storyline would I take from to give him more time to be able to build his character a bit more, build Aviendha and the two maidens a bit more? I don't know. I couldn't tell you where the time should come from, but I think they deserved more time on screen. It wasn't, like I said, terrible, but it certainly wasn't as well done as, say, Rand or Egwene, or even like the Dark Friends and Lanfear and whatnot. Now we're talking about Matt's storyline. Matt and Min for the second season, the storyline might as well have been non-existent. Very little character building, in my opinion. He felt like an afterthought throughout much of the season until he was thrust to the forefront in the finale and did a bunch of fantastical things all at once, when people who may not know the character from the books really didn't think that much of him because he wasn't around a whole lot. You only seen him a couple times throughout the entire season, and a lot of what the scenes he was in were confusing. They had little setup. You didn't really understand what was going on. Some foreshadowing and some fan service for the book fans, of course, but it was difficult to follow, hard to watch, and his character basically went through an entire character arc of building him from low to high in half an episode, between episodes 7 and 8, and it was rough to watch. It was hard to watch, especially for someone like Matt, who most people I think can agree that the show hasn't showcased him to be one of the main characters at this point yet. I think that's going to change a bit season 3 and on, especially considering some of the things I've seen. But for now, for season 2, his storyline was incredibly subpar as far as I was concerned. Now we're going to talk about the finale. Now, the finale is where I'm going to get a lot of people who really like the show angry at me, because I know when I released my review of it, I've never received so many hateful messages. It kind of shocked me quite a bit. And it's part of the reason why I took such a long break at the end of season 2 before releasing more videos. It's because of the reaction from the fan base when I talked about the finale. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was rushed. I thought it didn't make much sense. I thought the characters' motivations and some of the things that they did made no sense for where they were at in the show and how they were built up. It had nothing to do with changes from the source material. I just didn't think it was that great. Plus, I went in with incredibly high expectations. It was likened to Gladiator or Cleopatra. Very, very well received, epic, old, classic shows that it didn't live up to in any way, shape, or form. It felt as if a lot of the storylines needed another 2 or 3 episodes to bubble a bit, to percolate before ending them, and everything was ended very, very quickly. The big battle scene at the end of the season was not what I would have expected or what I was used to as far as big battle scenes for higher budget fantasy shows would go. It was pretty subpar as far as I was concerned there. So there was a lot of character building moments that needed to happen prior to the finale that didn't. There was a lot of rushed things that happened within the finale that I needed to watch the show 3 or 4 times to understand what was going on. The fighting, the battle scenes, all of that kind of crammed together. It felt very cobbled together. It kind of felt like, do you remember when you were a kid and you had you had a project due the next day. Let's say it's a diorama. You had to do the next day. You left it to the night before, and you're rummaging through your house trying to find things to throw together to make something. You make something that's good enough for a passing grade, but it's not to your abilities. So the rest of the season was made to their abilities, and then that final episode just, for me, dropped off. There are a few people out there that agree with me, but there are many people that do not. In fact, it was hailed as one of the best finales by a lot of different people, including different critics and whatnot. So again, my own opinion, I did not enjoy the finale at all, and it's part of the reason why this got an 8 out of 10 rather than a 10. Because I would have went much, much higher if the finale was stronger. And in rewatching it a couple of times, in my opinion, the finale actually got a little bit weaker. At least for me, it did anyway. All right, so that's my thoughts on season 2. My overall score is 8 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I, for one, am very, very excited to see season 3. And I'm going to give a little plug here at the end. There is a number of rewatch campaigns going on right now. Season 3 is filmed. They're going through post-production right now. And in fact, they're still filming a little bit of season 3 right up until, I believe, sometime in December. They're doing that in South Africa. So they're still filming it, but season 3 was greenlit and has been mostly filmed at this point, so we're getting a season 3. However, season 4 is still up in the air, and how Amazon really likes to push their shows is completion rates. So if you like the show, if you want to see more of the Wheel of Time, I would definitely rewatch the show a number of times on each account that you can, because it gives them that little nudge, that little push over for completion rates to be able to maybe greenlight season 4, because we haven't heard anything about that at all just yet. All right, thank you very much for sticking with us here at the very end. Here's to many more.